Alright, so the next thing that we're going to be going over is the grid sizes. So this is a big issue with newer mappers, not so much with people who are a little more experienced, but the main thing that I find that a lot of new mappers are doing are they're using grid sizes that are too big, or not very often, but too small in some cases, but a lot of times too big of a grid size. So what I like to do is be familiarized with the keys, the number keys above the keyboard here. If you are dealing with a grid size of 4, that's pretty standard for a wall. 3, 2, 1, that's when you start getting into more finer details. I don't usually go beyond a grid size of 4, to be honest. Maybe an 8 here or there, but you know, usually that's about as good as you want. So basically, if you want to go into your fine details, this is literally the scale of the grid that I use. I go anywhere from a grid size of 0.25 all the way up to a grid size of 4. So if I'm using a grid size of 8, grid size of 8 is pretty good for a wall. So if you're going with a grid size of 8, that's good for walls, ceilings, floors. If you're going with 4, maybe you're doing a thinner wall, maybe you're doing some sort of small detail, not quite sure, maybe a board or something going along a floor, just some sort of smaller thing, not quite as thick as a wall. 3 to 2 and 1, you know, maybe you're doing a thick trim. You don't want to go too thick with trim or else it looks too boxy, in my opinion. You'll notice a lot of mappers seem to have a lot of trim lately, which is good, but if it's too thick, then it looks bad. If you don't have that sort of thickness of trim in real life, like realistically, trim around a door, trim around a window, trim along the baseboard, that's not very thick. So keep in mind what you usually have in the real world, but also keep in mind that the real world can be pretty bland, so don't always use everything that you see in the real world as a standard. Keep what you think looks good, what other people looks good. Use those reference images like I said before. So that kind of goes with the grid size. The one thing that I wanted to go over here was, you can see this map, looks pretty detailed. It's relatively good looking. You got a good sense of the amount of models there, some nice decals on the ground, mud kind of splattered on the garage door there. We got some nice ambient lighting that's kind of partially going onto the wall with some volumetric lighting as well, which is great. But the one thing that's wrong with this is the grid size. You'll notice all the things, all the trim, the supports, the windows, everything is using a very thick grid size, and it looks bad. It's not like, it doesn't look terrible because I've kind of covered it up with models and volumetric lighting and the decals. It looks good, but when you get to looking at making it look like this, then you've improved drastically. So I've gone ahead, I've made windows that aren't perfectly square, so I'm actually using patches for that little archway. You don't have to use brushes for everything. In fact, I suggest that you try to use some patches because they add so much more to your map. It adds a lot more character, which we'll go into in a bit. But basically, when you're dealing with our other image here, the one without all the details and the thick brushes, you'll notice the support beams, we're all using the same textures here. All the textures are the exact same between the two. But when I make it like a thinner support beam along the edge there, you'll notice I bevel the edges, I kind of inset the middle part so it looks like an I-beam. Like these fine details really add to the map. And if you take the time to kind of go into an area and picture what you might think that this would look like using your reference images if you need to, then you can go ahead and you can get really into making some cool looking designs, even using models, for instance. You can see the pipes off to the side there are highlighted by the light because of the angle that I decided to set it on, and it kind of, that's why I wanted to have the curve there. You see where it kind of does the 90 degree then another 90 degree turn. I wanted that to be kind of centered in the light so that you can kind of get an idea of some more detail going on there. We got kind of an equal level of sandbags going along the ground, some boards. So that's some smaller stuff, but we'll go into that in a bit later. For now, keep in mind when you're doing trim or anything to sort of add to a wall or something that's not structurally supposed to affect the player, it's more of just something that's supposed to add detail, try to make sure that you don't use the wrong brush size. The grid is so key to making everything look nice, and remember, it also doesn't need to be a brush, it can also be a patch.